What's up, YouTube? Another Extra Time coming at you. We're talking to Inter Miami CF Sporting Director Paul McDonough. And what did we ask
David Beckham will be on the show. He's in the headline, and he's on the show.
Yes, he is on the show in a way. Paul will tell us how involved David is. He's making phone calls. They're trying to sign DPs. And is Marcelo Gallardo coming to Miami? We'll find out. It goes, dun, 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 dun. The Extra Time starts now. From New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental from the AT&T MLS studios in Midtown Manhattan. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, Matt Doyle, Calen Carr, Paul McDonough, the sporting director of Inter Miami, coming up in just a little bit.
I thought you just drafted him there.
Yeah,
you know right into the Extra Time lineup.
You think so? You think he's part of it? He's part of the family? He's a partner in soccer, so to speak?
It's a little early for that.
We have 5 digits partners in soccer. That many. Up to 20,000 sometimes, depending on the show. All of you at home watching on YouTube, if that's how you do it, or wherever you get your podcast, you're part of this family, and we have a ton of mail to dig in today as well. We're going to be talking about the expansion draft. That's on Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. You can watch it on YouTube, Twitter, MLSsoccer.com, and the MLS app. And if you're saying to yourself, I don't really care, Inter Miami, Nashville, doesn't matter to me as a fan of my MLS club, well, you should probably care because you could lose a player in this thing. So go check out the protected list. We'll give you our picks very, very soon, and Paul will walk you through the Inter Miami strategy as well as he can without giving away a lot of state secrets, let's say, for that team. We're going to talk U.S. national team, 4-1 over Canada. How do you feel, Calen? I asked you that before the game, and you said, not great. Better?
I feel okay.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, I feel okay. I mean, we beat Canada at home. I thought they looked – I liked that there was a good response from the group after what really was not a great performance against Canada away. So they got off to a good start. Jordan Morris continued his good form, and I thought the back line looked way better. Getting Brooks back, I think, was really helpful, and Long had him and Long had a really good partnership going. A
dose of pragmatism maybe from Greg Berhalter. We'll talk about that a little bit more and roll through a bunch of rumors in the MLS world and something that's not a rumor, which is that Brian Fernandez is out. He is no longer going to be with the Portland Timbers.
Get better, Brian.
Yes, that is ultimately the message. We'll talk about that a little bit. Vancouver hired a sporting director. Thierry Henry had his first press conference, and we have a ton of mail hitting a bunch of different things. Let's talk expansion.
Wait, can I just try one thing? Can I just bring up one thing? Because I just went to Weebe's kid's second birthday.
Oh.
Happy birthday to Cam.
Yeah.
And we were hanging out at this bar in Brooklyn, which I hadn't been to before.
Yeah, it's my home. It's my home base.
Okay,
it's like a beer garden. It has like 4 or 5 different restaurants.
Yeah,
it's
I had
a block
Hong
and a half.
Kong street food.
Yeah, it's a block and a half from my house. We live there.
As you would expect.
The amount of money we've had, the baby shower there, the first birthday there, any event that we ever have is at Bergen.
So we go to order a beer at the bar, and the bartender comes up and is like, hey, how do you think the U.S. did, or what did you think about that performance?
Yeah, didn't even greet me.
Just straight
went straight into the U.S. national team talk, which I was very appreciative of, but a little bit confused about. And then when I got my next beer, I was like, did you listen to Extra Time? Is that a thing that you do? And he was like, yeah, man, I was a Portland Timbers fan back in the USL days.
Look at that.
Yes.
The show's on the come up, guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cameron's second birthday, little pump up for Dada.
It's usually Matt Doyle fans that I meet out there, but to see an Andrew Wiebe supporter in the flesh.
I think he was a supporter of you as well. Ben Bear was there.
Nobody really came up to me, but
next time. Come up with me next time.
I got to get on the show more often.
Exactly. Come up with me next time.
Hey, more about the Matt Doyle supporters out there.
Here's a note that we should probably say. Somebody won a championship in North American soccer this weekend. Congratulations to the Real Monarchs. Jameson Olave, their head coach, who I assume will now get the permanent job for them. The USL team underneath Real Salt Lake, kind of in conjunction, going between, and without Douglas Martinez as well, who was one of their best players this year, suspended for violent conduct in that semifinal match. They beat Louisville City, kept them from the three-peat, won in Louisville. Louisville, of course, opened that new soccer-specific stadium next year. But congratulations to Real Monarchs, another awesome USL championship season in the books.
A couple of the Real Monarchs homegrown kids were very good in that game. Center back Eric Holt, who I think he played a little bit this year for RSL, including the Leagues Cup game against Tigres, where he was very good. And then the young kid, David Ochoa, the goalkeeper, he'll almost certainly get a chance to be a starter going into next year for RSL. Super talented. He's a 2001, so he's still just 18 years old. He was on the US U20 roster this past spring. He's still eligible for the 2021 US U20 team. Got a ton of upside. So.
Awesome. Congratulations to them. And Hamilton Olave, a legend getting a coaching job
Nice
at the
to see
USL
it.
level. We have a question here from fans about former MLSers that you'd like to see coach in the league, a la Thierry Henry, and we'll answer that in a bit. Expansion draft, as I said, 5:30 Eastern on Tuesday, YouTube, Twitter, MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app, all the places where you can normally watch these productions. Nashville and Inter Miami will both have 5 selections. All teams this year were able to protect 12 players on their rosters after previously being allowed to just place 11 on those protected lists in the past. Now, Generation Adidas players who have not yet graduated are exempt. Homegrown players 25 and under also exempt. FC Dallas, DC United, Houston Dynamo, New York Red Bulls, Vancouver Whitecaps, they are exempt because FC Cincinnati took players from all of those teams.
Even when they shouldn't have.
Even when they shouldn't have. The FC Cincinnati expansion draft was a lesson in what not to do.
Correct.
It was one that surely Mike Jacobs and Paul McDonough looked at and said, okay, not this. Flip it up. Now, not all expansion
Did we
drafts are
say that
perfect.
at the time? I'm worried this is going to resurface now.
Yeah, go back and think about it. I'm pretty sure there was,
Pretty sure there was some positivity.
That was in the time of, I think, a little bit of derision and some skepticism on the part of most people when they were looking at FC Cincinnati's roster. I think if you went back and checked your takes, Kalen, you would be okay on
Check
that
the
one.
drafts, Kalen.
Yeah, go check into those
too
drafts.
deep
But,
in
it just occurs to me that only one of the people at this table, before we get to Paul and give our picks and our best expansion pick of all time in MLS history, only one of us was ever eligible to be picked in an expansion draft.
A couple times.
And that's true, a couple times. What's it feel like, Kalen, to be on that unprotected list?
It depends. It depends on the time. And it depends who's coming in. I remember when Toronto came in, and I actually think I wanted to get picked by them because I was a little bit, I don't know what the word would be.
You were miffed about maybe playing time. Was that the Open Cup year?
It was the year after.
Oh.
Yeah, but I'd played through the playoffs as a starter and then wasn't protected, so it was kind of like, I think I actually was on a mock draft here at MLSNet.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's a throwback.
Yeah.
MLSNet. I'm trying to figure out who it was. Maybe Simon?
I don't know. That's certainly before my time.
I think
here.
Simon was still in comms at that point. It was probably, might have been Mark Connolly.
Okay.
Yeah, it might have been Lawless.
Wow.
Yeah.
They had their eye on a young, floppy-haired winger.
if you have a chance to pick
forward
the
in
headband,
Chicago.
you have to take
Had to
it.
take it. But you didn't get picked. You
No,
wanted to go to
ultimately
Toronto?
what happened was McBride came back to MLS that year and wanted to come to Chicago, but Toronto, I think because they were an expansion team, had first rights to him. They traded Chad Barrett to Toronto for
legend.
the rights to McBride, I believe.
Ah.
So I was just left out and came back the next year and
Carlos De Los Cobos started playing you at winger.
oh no,
Or not
that
at winger,
was
as
that
sweeper,
was a
rather.
couple years later. Yeah, I mean, whew. How long do we have for De Los Cobos?
We don't have it on this top podcast, but we have a long off season to go. So Michael Van Zant hit us up on Twitter. We asked you for your feedback on what we should talk about. Hey, let you produce the show. He says, who do you think is the greatest expansion pick in MLS history? I'm going to throw some out there. Latif Blessing is a clear and obvious one. He was one of those numbers games sort of unprotected players for Sporting Kansas City based on the international slots. Remember, they traded for the TNT forward. God, I'm forgetting his name now. Kenwin Jones, Kansas City, to fill an international spot, even though he was retiring, couldn't protect Latif, who was so good as a winger, then became a central midfielder under Bob, and now has been very good. Sebastian Letou. That's a big one.
Philadelphia Union legend.
And became a Union legend.
One of the things a question I used to pose is like, what would that Sounders attack have looked like in 2013, 14, 15 when it was Obafemi Martins, Clint Dempsey, and then if you had Letou as one of the wingers.
Basically a crasher, like almost like a Wando.
But, I mean, they had Lamar Nagel play in that role as like the third attack. If you had put Sebastian Letou in that, it was one of the few mistakes I thought the Sounders made in that first year was letting Sebastian Letou be unprotected.
And obviously a legend for Philly as well. Andy Williams, RSL. That was a really good one from sort of back in the day. Who remembers Sesanovic being taken by the Montreal Impact?
And then he said he would retire.
He said he would retire, and then they traded Davey Arnaud.
That was a tough year. I remember Chingy got picked by there too, and held hostage and sent back for.
Yeah, Jesse Marsh was not playing.
Jesse played hardball.
They came in hot.
Definitely.
Like, damn, leave the legend alone.
Holding some hostages, and that turned into Davey Arnaud, who I believe scored their first ever MLS goal. I was there for that one, and was their captain in the first year when they were pretty good. Donnie Toya for Atlanta United became the number 8 pick, who was Julian Gressel. That's a good one. Brett Evans. And the Sounders,
great pick,
from Columbus Crew, who Siggy obviously knew very well.
I mean, they had just won the double.
Yeah.
If you're looking at individual picks, I think all those are great. I would probably say Zach Thornton.
That's a good one.
He came in that first year. He won goalkeeper of the year, best 11. He was an all-star. They won MLS Cup. So I think every single trophy the Fire have ever won, Zach Thornton was in goal for.
And there's actually another guy on that Fire team that they kind of like move and shook and found a way to get.
In after the 97 season, the Fire were coming in and they took Kevin Hartman, who had spent that year as the backup to Jorge Campos in LA. And they also had, I believe, the rights to Danny Pena, who was one of those pre-MLS guys who not a lot of people remember. But he absolutely, if Danny Pena came through today, he would be like a borderline national team defensive midfielder. So they swapped Danny Pena and Kevin Hartman for Jorge Campos and Chris Armas. And so, the core of that 98 Fire team happened because of wheeling and
You're
dealing.
starting to notice a trend here. Bob Bradley in 1998, Chicago Fire, who had, when you look at the other best expansion draft probably ever, LAFC, a couple years ago.
Tyler Miller, Orena, who was a contributor and helped, Latif. I'm trying to think. Who else
it was Raheem Edwards and Reitala,
and they flipped him for Saman. Which didn't work out as well,
but then the other one I always think about, and people mostly forget this, but I don't think they do in Portland. The Timbers, when they were coming in, took Dax McCarty with their first expansion draft pick back in 2000. Well, it was 2010 before the 11th season. They could have had Diego Chara, Dax McCarty, and Diego Valeri as their central midfield for basically this entire decade. Like, it's one of the great because Dax and Chara are two of the 5 or 6 best defensive midfielders of all time, and you could just played a 4-2-3-1 with those two guys behind Valeri. How many MLS Cups does that team win? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. And I don't think they got a ton for him.
They got Rodney Wallace, and I want to say a 3rd-round pick. I mean, Rodney
Wallace has a game-winning MLS Cup
Rodney
goal,
Wallace
by the way.
was
how many MLS Cups might they not have if they?
No, I mean, Rodney Wallace was a good MLS player. He scored that big goal in MLS Cup. But I think that looking back, if you were to redo that trade, you would probably say
Wouldn't touch it. Give me the MLS Cup winning goal any day of the week.
Okay, I respect it. All right, before we get to who we would keep, who we would trade, our picks in the expansion draft, we don't want to poison our minds. Before we talk to Paul McDonough, he's the sporting director of Inter Miami. They've already been making moves. Mateus Pellegrini in as a young designated player from Estudiantes. Julian Carranza, he was a transfer from Banfield, a TAM forward, a young Argentine. Christian McCoon, defender, midfielder from Zamora, but he was at Juve, I believe, on loan. George Acosta, Victor Ulloa, Jay Chapman, Grant Lillard, and David Norman as well have come in. Let's talk to Paul right now. Wow, here's another one. Jerome Kiesewetter coming in from
former USU 23. I think he got 1 cap under Klinsmann. He's one of the German Americans.
He was at El Paso.
He was in El Paso, signed in USL, tore up USL. He's probably a winger, maybe a second forward in certain setups. Another guy added to the list.
All right, let's talk to Paul McDonough. Paul, welcome to Extratime.
Thanks, guys. How you doing?
We're doing really well. We're here to pull expansion secrets out of your brain because you've done this a couple times now, Orlando City and Atlanta United, and now with Inter Miami. So tell me, what did you learn from those first 2 experiences that you're applying now? What are the best practices for an expansion team sporting director?
No, I mean, I think it's important, right? You got to have a plan. Each build is so different based on your ownership, the assets you have. Things certainly changed a lot between the 2 builds in Orlando and Atlanta with, the introduction of TAM. So I think we're in a much better place. I think the pools are deeper now than they were. So I think the most important thing for us was to just get a plan, and we're trying to stick to our guns on what we've decided to do.
What is that plan? And obviously it's behind lock and key, I assume. But, I got to ask the question. When you look at, I want to say, just for comparison's sake, Nashville SC, they've gone out and spent a good amount of allocation money on assets from within the league. You haven't done that so much. You've gone outside, Pellegrini, Carranza from Argentina, Makun coming in and sort of a flyer on a guy who has a big reputation but maybe hasn't realized it, and then some sort of depth pieces from MLS. It feels to me like you're slow rolling, you're waiting, you have moves down the line. Does that feel correct?
I don't know about slow rolling. No, look, I think one of the things that I find with expansion teams, right, is you focus so much on the 20-man roster. I think, people don't pay enough attention to the 20-man roster, so teams lack a little bit of depth. I think the trade market has become inflated. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to try to go out and find some quality in the supplemental roster and not have to pay a super high premium. So, one of the deals we did was to get Victor Aloa, but also I acquired the number 1 pick in the reentry draft. So, the way I thought about it was if I had to overpay on a contract for 1 year, it's still probably going to be cheaper than having to go acquire that player in trade. So that, and finding a guy like Lillard, when we went and did these things, I just thought, for the future and for the U.S. Open Cup runs, and for playing when we have Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday games, that we would have a little bit more depth.
You said the trade market, you feel it's a little bit inflated. That works to your advantage a little bit, does it not, coming into this expansion draft? Because we know that this isn't a keeper deal, at least in its entirety. These are assets potentially to be flipped. So does that not, that helps you a little bit? Are you fielding calls right now? I have to imagine all these teams are trying to get in line to pick up players that they like for a price they like better maybe than otherwise in the expansion draft from you and from Nashville.
Yeah, it's funny, right? I think when you're out in the regular trade market, the prices are very high. I think the other teams in the league look at when they come to trade with an expansion team for the expansion spot, they just think that, it's worth $50,000 because that's what a team that loses the player gets. So a lot of the questions always from the team is, what are you selling a spot for? And my response is, well, a spot is very different if I'm picking, a top player like an Ethan Finley or Medina, as opposed to someone that's coming off the reserve roster. So you have to take it individually as they come.
So in the past, going back to 2016 expansion drafts, really, finding the right player for the roster meant making a trade for Julian Gressel, who fell to the number 8 pick in the Super Draft. You were able to flip Donny Toya for him. Donny Toya has become a pretty good MLS player. Julian Gressel has obviously become an excellent MLS player. Is that something that is open to you guys? Is that something that you are thinking about? Or has the value of these trade assets just grown too much in the past couple of years, and it's now sort of just a new era in terms of where the Super Draft ranks as a priority?
No, I think there's always still going to be quality in the Super Draft to a certain extent. I think you just take them as they come. I think in Atlanta we had thought that we had done a lot more with the senior roster at that time. And when we were looking at it, we were saying, look, if we could get, we got to a stage where we didn't think we would use all 5 of the picks. So we're saying, look, if we could flip it for an asset on the supplemental roster, which we did, we got the number 8 pick and we thought that there'd be some quality. I wish I could tell you, Matt, that we knew it was going to be Gressel and he was going to be that good. But it just worked out that way, right? And I think it worked out that way because we were prepared, we had a plan, and we just tried to use one of the expansion picks to get an asset.
How much do contract options play into this expansion draft, Paul? Because teams want to, if they want to have that player flip to you, at least have an opportunity to negotiate. You probably want that as well, depending on what the salary is for some of the bigger name players and even some of the quote unquote middle class guys when you look at the way salaries are distributed around MLS. How does a contract option play into this for you, current state of contract?
Yeah, listen, I think, again, right, I really, I told Kurt and Nikki, I said, listen, we're not going to get crazy in the trade market. I'm not going to pay big money. But if we come across a guy that maybe every GM in the league thinks that the contract is overpaid by $100,000 for 1 year, I may do that because I think I'm going to be better off in the long run. They looked at me like I was crazy, but we'll see how it plays out. I think I wanted to use all of my allocation money for my 20-man roster, and I did not want to spend a lot of it giving it to other teams because I think with our ownership group and the money that we're going to have to invest in DPs and the TAM players, then I think that's where we're going to make a significant impact with our team.
Is it true that the other teams are looking at you in Nashville and rubbing their hands together and thinking, oh, this is a money fountain? Because it kind of feels like maybe that's how I would think if I was them.
Yeah, you know what? The beauty of this thing for me, sitting through, this is my third, but I also was in the room with all the teams when other expansion teams came in. And it certainly is one of those things that they sit there and say, look, we're going to hold these guys up and we're going to try to drive prices. And I just felt as though we had to have discipline not to cave to that. And, the way I look at it is, with a couple of free agents, and I've got 7 more international spots. I've got 5 picks. I've got a few players already signed to the senior squad. And then with the reentry, I can take one guy. So I'm in the ballpark of filling out my senior roster, and I haven't spent a lot of my allocation money. So I can put that into my 20-man roster or my 18-man roster.
That's a plan. And so throughout this interview, you've said a lot of we and a lot of I, and then back to we.
Kurt got in there.
Yeah. No mention of a head coach. That is the big question with Inter Miami.
It is. I know.
Go ahead.
Where's it stand? The search? I mean, I remember a couple weeks ago it was supposedly soon, Paul. Is it soon now or is it later?
I said this the other day to somebody. I think look, we're trying to do it. I think Miami's a really, really interesting market that so many people want to come. But, trying to get those things over the line is harder because they want to come and they know the quality of our ownership group, I guess. So, again, sticking to your guns on what money is and things like that and term. We've been having some discussions about those things with people. But I think the hard part is we always think that coaches have to be around to build clubs. And I think clubs build clubs. And coaches come and coach the team, and I think it's a common thought that, the coaches have to pick the team. Well, if I pick a team, if I let my coach pick a team, and then he leaves in 2 years, where does that leave me in the club? So it was really important for David and myself to, make a plan, and we'll build the club. And of course, the coach is going to have some say on some of the final pieces, but I don't know. I guess when I hire the guy, you can ask him if we did a good job.
We will.
Is it going to be?
We absolutely will.
How are we talking? Is this big names? I mean, it's Miami. It's David Beckham. Everything that you've done so far leads people to believe that it's big names. Is that the sort of crew that you're looking at right now? It's a name that we would recognize, who has experience, who's done big things in this game.
Yeah. Listen, I think yes, you will.
That's simple enough. That answers the question. Thank you, Paul. You said David, he's working with you on building this club. How involved is David Beckham?
No, he's good. David's involved. He's around. He knows. I mean, David doesn't spend a lot of time looking at the league, and he doesn't understand when I call and say, look, I'm going to take this pick, and I'm going to flip it for these 2 assets. He kind of looks at me, and he says, if you think that's what's best, then do it. But, I mean, David's around, right? So, one of the good things is when you have David Beckham and you're talking to a player, no matter who it is, whether it's a young South American player or an experienced European player, if they want to talk to David, David jumps on the phone, and it works out really well for us so far.
And you have 2 DP spots left, so David should probably be making some phone calls here. Do you think that you'll fill both of those? I mean, certain GMs around the league, I think of a Garth Lagerwey, often talks about how the summer is such a better time to do it, but you're Miami. You're this big ticket. You're in a city that loves glitz. I mean, do you feel like you have to have all 3 filled before the start of the season? Do you think you will?
My plan is to fill both.
Right. Is there going to be more of a veteran presence in there?
Potentially. No, listen. I think that's the big question, right? Do you go with a veteran guy, or do you go with kind of the younger, emerging stars? I think it worked out really, really well for Atlanta. And if we find the right guy, I think the hard part is when you look at the calendar with the European Championships and another major South American tournament this summer. You get one of those big name guys for 10 games. And I don't think that that's in the best interest of the club if we wait till the summer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That was really candid.
We love Paul.
If Doyle, let me tell you, if Doyle is giving me thumbs up, then this is big.
That's bad news.
Every GM in the league just fell out of its chair.
Yeah, I was going to say, when's the hang up noise coming from Paul? Paul, are you there? No, he's still there. Tell us a little bit about what you've seen from some of those guys that, we see the names, we see the figures, the Pellegrinis and the and Julian. What are they doing right now? How are you getting them ready to come to Miami?
I mean, I think the good thing for those guys is they're playing. Pellegrini had a hamstring, so we were extra cautious with Pellegrini coming back, and now he's back on the field. Melito was super patient with him, so I think that was really, really good for us, and he wanted to do it, so he wants to come here, and Verón tried to keep him a little longer, and the kid said no, he wanted to start in preseason and, start on the right foot. Carranza had some run with the Argentine youth national teams, but he's been playing, so that's really, really good. So we're just trying to get the guys playing, and then as soon as it's done, we'll get them up here, get them settled. Carranza's going to come before Christmas, so he's going to be settled, so he can transition into the team really well. We've got Chapman, Oyoa. Those guys are coming in tomorrow to start to look around to get settled. We've got the expansion draft, so they're going to be around to meet some of the fans. So it's good.
Paul, last one for you here. I often think about this, about background of sporting directors, GMs, and how they got to where they are and how those skills shaped them. You were an agent before you kind of got into this side of it. How does your background as an agent help you in this moment as you build a club from scratch, as you have so many contacts reaching out to you, as I'm sure you do, who want to come to Miami, as you think about things from both sides of the spectrum?
Yeah, no, look, I think it helped. I think a bigger asset to me was my time as a college coach, because I spent a lot of time building teams, and you'd have to plan. So I think, the building of a college team, although the price and the money is completely different, in theory, it's still the same. But I definitely think the agent piece helped, because I know what the players are feeling and I know what the agents are thinking and how they approach things. So I think both of those things have helped me, get where I am.
And that is building expansion clubs. Inter Miami on Tuesday. We'll have 5 selections in the expansion draft. You can watch it live on MLS channels, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, YouTube, Twitter, MLS Soccer, the MLS app. We will have Jillian Sakovits in Miami, Susanna Collins in Nashville, and then Calen, Doyle, and myself right here in New York City to convey all the picks, of course. Paul and Inter Miami will be busy. Paul, thanks so much for sharing some insight into what you guys are doing. Good luck. We'll be watching, okay?
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Paul.
Bye.
All right, big thanks to Paul for sharing some insight with us on Inter Miami. It's another AT&T call to the field, and a successful one at that, Calen, because I think we just found out they're going to fill their DP slots.
Weren't they? Was that ever a question?
Yeah,
it's Miami.
not. Yeah,
We're just going to sit around. Come on.
Sit on a DP slot. What did you find interesting from that chat with my guy Paul?
Just his experience, and I think the idea that the confidence to understand what the market is. And I thought the part where he talked about the trade market being inflated was interesting to me. I don't know too much about the trade market, but I have seen over time some of these numbers kind of all over the place as far as how much TAM goes to a specific player, how that compares to another guy, or GAM, and all these different assets. So to have somebody at the helm who understands it, can read the sort of tea leaves about the direction and make the right choices. I don't know. It was impressive. I learned a lot.
Yeah, I think Mike Jacobs has a lot of that, but I would do question, and I think that right now they're still in a fine position, having only spent Nashville $1.5 million of their allocation. But I think maybe you look at that Anibal Godoy trade right now from last year and think, there's a good chance Anibal Godoy could have been unprotected. Or maybe we could get him for a lesser number. Or maybe he would have moved. And all those things are maybe. Maybe Nashville just said, you know what, he's so important to us that we're going to go snatch him up. We shall see what the strategy for both these expansion teams is in this expansion draft, 5:30 p.m. Eastern. As I said, all the MLS channels, YouTube, Twitter, MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app. We'll have a live show here with Doyle, Calen, and myself, and then Susanna and Jillian on site to announce the picks. So tune in for that one to find out who might get taken. Now is that time where we throw out some names, do our best guesses. If I remember my past efforts on this, it's been relatively poor to bad. You have to kind of figure out what teams want. I mean, ultimately, I think...
Are we going to do a draft between us?
We could. It's hard. I don't think we should.
From what I've heard from folks around the league, like it wouldn't shock anybody if maybe just like one guy from each of these teams who gets taken is actually on that team. Like there's a lot of wheeling and dealing happening around the league, around these picks right now.
That's going to make it really easy for us to do the show.
Exactly.
And a trade has just happened. We've just talked about
Keep
how
your earpiece in.
This person fits on Inter Miami. Look, these are assets, ultimately. All these draft picks, and you heard Paul say it. The number one pick in the reentry draft, that's an asset. Whether it's a player or a player to be moved. All 5 of these picks, those are assets, and teams around the league are looking at it saying, this is an easier way for us to go cherry pick off other rosters. Inter Miami will have that chance. Regardless of keeper trade, who might be some keepers? Keepers?
Can I take the first pick of the draft?
Yeah, do it. Yeah, go for it.
All right. What the first pick? Who has the first pick? Miami?
Yes.
Okay. Miami FC, Inter Miami FC, should take
Dun dun dun.
Peter Lee Vassell.
Oh, Peter Lee Vassell.
Vassell.
Yes.
First pick, I gotta get that name right. First pick,
gotta get the name right.
That's
Peter
not
Lee.
good.
Hey, he's showed some flashes. He's got a pretty tolerable contract, but he is international.
Tolerable is an understatement. It's for MLS standards, it's very low. He's 21 years old, which is probably the main reason why I would pick him. Jamaican international, looked really good against the U.S. in the games I saw him play. From what I saw or heard around LAFC, they really like him, and it's a good situation because when you look at a guy that's been in a good system, has been in a good winning culture, right? Former expansion team, coached up by Bob Bradley, and behind the players that he's behind in that center midfielder, training with Atuesta, Mark Anthony Kay.
He's got a foundation.
And those guys,
he could be a jump off guy. Somebody that you think has
he was
a lot
the
more
40th
potential.
overall pick last year in the MLS draft, so kind of fell way far below there. I thought a really good value pick for LAFC, and if you're looking at, it's not always the biggest names in these expansion draft. This one to me seems like a no-brainer for either team, and I would go after him early.
It may be the international spot that throws people off, but I do think that position, young upside, is what you're looking for. I also think outside back is a spot in addition to goalkeeper that they may go after here. I'm gonna throw some names out there. Zarek Valentin. Got a pretty good contract. Can play both sides. Has a lot of experience. Mikey Ambrose. I mean, Atlanta took him in that last expansion draft. Left back. Jordan Harvey.
One of the things that I think Paul and Bob Bradley looked for the last couple of years were having guys come into that Atlanta team and then into that LAFC team one way or another, whether it's free agency or expansion draft, who have been around the league, who are not necessarily coming in to be starters, but who can come in and be a part of establishing the locker room culture. So by that rationale, a guy like Zarek Valentin would be great. I think like Hector Jimenez makes a lot of sense as well. Hector's like, everybody knows Hector was one of the reasons he'd been with the crew for so long is because he's one of those guys who knits together the English-speaking side of the locker room and the Spanish-speaking side of the locker room. And in Miami especially, you're going to need those guys. I think it's one of the reasons they went out and they got Victor Ulloa. So there's one way to think about
spots on the field too.
What's up?
He can play multiple spots on the field.
That's
He's played outside back on both sides. He's played sort of a central midfielder. That's where he played at Berkeley, and it's sort of politest trade, and he even has played on the wings a little bit at times. He's sort of dropped further back as his career's gone on, but I like that pick.
Would you take Christian Higuita if you're Miami just to troll Orlando City?
I would take him. Probably he's an asset guy to me. He's probably not one that unless Paul is like, this is my dude, and I'm guessing he's probably one of the people that helped bring him to Orlando. I could be completely wrong about that, but Higuita's been there a long time now. Paul probably would have been involved in at least the early parts of that. I think, again, going back to outside back, Steven Beitashour is here. Justin Morrow is here. Even if these two teams don't think that they want to pay that amount for an outside back, there's got to be some teams out there, a la LAFC, who took Beitashour and Harvey. I know they're on the back end, but that goes back to what you're saying about those locker rooms.
Yeah, and there's another really good outside back. I'm trying to go through the list. Where was it? From Sporting.
Jimmy Madronda?
No.
I think he could be here too. Mike Jacobs knows him well.
Seth Sinovic?
Yeah, Seth, yeah.
But I don't think Seth wants to leave Kansas City. I think he's so insistent that he won't leave that it would be a hostage situation again, which maybe is good. Then you go back to Kansas City and say, we need this. But then they might say, hey, Jalen Lindsey will do the job just fine.
So here's one for you.
They also signed the Portuguese cat.
Jalen Lindsey's a right back.
Yeah, sorry. They signed the Portuguese guy. I can't remember his name right now.
So one of the things we don't know, is NYCFC paid a lot of money for Jesus Medina a few years ago. He makes about $800,000 a year, so he's a TAM level salary. But with the transfer fee factored in, he counts as a DP. Now, if you're Nashville SC and you take Jesus Medina and the transfer's already been paid, and you're just getting him on that salary for a year and a half or 2 years, to me, that's a useful flyer to take because you've seen Jesus Medina play in this league. It didn't work out for him with NYCFC, but he produces goals and assists. He produces chances when he gets on the field. I think one of the most interesting things is going to be what happens with Jesus Medina in this draft. He's an unprotected young DP who's played internationally at various levels for Paraguay, I believe. Produced in this league. If you can get him and just have him take up a TAM slot as opposed to a DP, I think that's a no-brainer.
It's a pretty good flyer.
I'd stay away. I would go if you're looking at NYCFC's roster. I think Ibiaga's the choice to make.
I think they got a couple. Ibiaga's there. Tony Rocha's there for me.
But why would you stay away? Because he's a young, productive, attacking player who you're getting basically for free.
Because he's been wildly inconsistent to me.
That's what happens with young players.
Absolutely, but you can go out and get a young player in this league that isn't wildly inconsistent.
But what if you have to pay the transfer fee?
Ooh, go out into the market.
I mean, that's the thing. So if you want to compare him to Jonathan Lewis, Jonathan Lewis was very similar to Jesus Medina. The Rapids had to pay $650,000 to get Jonathan Lewis. Same age, same position. Lewis is a little more productive. I think a little more dynamic physically. But if you can get a flyer on a guy like this for free, why would you not?
I would just rather spend that money. I would rather pay a transfer fee and go out into the market and grab a guy.
And get your own guy.
Yeah. And I think there's better value on NYCFC. If you have one choice to make from that roster, to me, Ibiaga's the one because he's on $150K, starting center back for the number one team in the East. That's the no-brainer for me.
Calling him starting is
he's starting
a liberty.
James. Ebenezer at 4, he's also there too. He's 24, has Bundesliga experience. Played some good minutes for them. I mean, there are options here. It's not as deep as previous drafts, but we shall see what happens. 5:30 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. Watch the live stream, MLS channels, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Excuse me, not Facebook. MLSsoccer.com, MLS app. We will be here to bring you that entire thing. So I'm sure that a lot of the players that we named will not get picked, and maybe if we're lucky, some will. Let us know what you think about that.
I'll be shocked if Christian Higuita is not picked. You pick them, and even if you're not going to use them, pick and flip.
We named a bunch of players that are sort of in that on the border of senior supplemental roster. Mm-hmm. There are going to be players who cost more money that when we go through the list and fans do, they're like, no way. But some other team is thinking either it's an option they can renegotiate on, or they think they can get this player for less, or they think they actually fit better and they're just undervalued and actually work in their system. Somebody with a bigger number is going to get picked here and either flipped or kept, and we'll see who that is is. Jerry Wodowski asked us this: if there was a soccer podcast expansion draft, who would be left unprotected from the Extratime crew, and why is it Ben Bear?
Ben even part of the crew anymore?
Oh, wow. The shade on Ben. He's going to listen to this, and he's going to come to me and be really upset. We haven't yet picked up his option either. So TBD on Ben. All right, let's talk U.S. national team. You gave us the opening stanza there, Calen. 4-1 win against Canada. It was doom and gloom headed into this game. It was, oh my God, could the U.S. lose twice in a row to Canada? It was, oh my God, could Canada qualify for the Hex, basically, with a win against the U.S.? And then it was pragmatic play. It was a move from this quote-unquote system that Greg Berhalter has championed for the better part of a year. It was a 4-1 win. It was Jordan Morris 2 minutes in. It was Gyasi Zardes twice. It was Aaron Long on a set piece. It was a Steven Vittoria header that ruined the shutout, but there was no Pulisic, there was no Adams, there was no Stefan. But it was a result, damn it, and that was what we needed, Doyle. This was not a game that makes you feel secure about the future, but it makes you feel a little bit more secure about the immediacy of the present, just in the sense of, like, we got back to what should be number one, which is winning.
Yeah, I think that kind of puts a period on it. The U.S., it was so experimental throughout the year, including in games that mattered, like last month against Canada and the friendly against Mexico. And I know that's just a friendly, but games against Mexico always matter. And the U.S. were not good. And on Friday night, they were pretty good. And it came from winning the ball in central midfield. It came from realizing that the game is going to be won or lost in transition and just dominating those transition moments. And the U.S. have always had the talent to do that. And I would argue that the talent that we have is better suited to doing that than to playing the system. That said, I don't think what Greg Berhalter tried to do for the first 11 months of his tenure meant nothing. I think we needed those moments, those games, whether it was against Trinidad and Tobago or Cuba or whoever, where there were repeatable patterns of play in terms of how to get into those positions in the attacking third. Just to show that, okay, this is how we execute it, because we're going to be playing a lot of games still against teams that bunker in. We are going to be facing teams that aren't front foot and aggressive like John Herdman's Canada was and like Tata Martino's Mexico was, and we are going to have a way to break them down. And I think that Berhalter laid some of the groundwork for that. That said, like you said, it was winning time. It was winning time on Friday, and we went back to a lot of the old ways. We still did try to build from the back more than we have in the past, and I think at times it was successful. But like, we still are who we are, and that's, if you get a chance to kill them on set pieces in transition, that is kind of the American way.
Do you think that we will stick with the American way? Or was this a special situation, must-win game, pressure mounting, time to go pragmatic? Greg Berhalter was very, very pointed in his public comments, which is very smart of him in this time as more and more people start to kind of raise eyebrows and do even more than that in talking about effort, in talking about competitiveness, in setting up his team in a certain way that was different than before. But do you think that is the future? Or was that simply the present because it was the right thing to happen in that moment?
Well, that's the point. It's to make a decision on what the right thing is in that moment and for that specific game. And the frustration for me is that we have seemed to say, this is our system, this is the way we're going to play, and going out there and watching these guys sort of think through the paces of the system and forgetting the fact that this sport is, it's like in the moment, a center back, a goalkeeper, a defender, anybody should sense the danger and not think, oh, well, in this moment here, it's...
But the right back is tucking and I'm supposed...
Right, and you're thinking through it. And at certain points, you just have to be able to go to your instinct and allow the players to play. And I think in this situation, I saw a lot more of that, where there were times where John Anthony Brooks really did try and play out of the back, and we were able to find some nice combination play to start the attack. But then there were times where it was just Serginho Dest was just like, send it long, and let's clear out, let's win a second ball, let's go from there. And that was what was the most encouraging to me, was the fact that we seemed to have some flexibility within the game plan, or that we could play a different way. Now, I'd expect as we go to this next match to Cuba,
Yeah.
this is the perfect time to let's go back to this, use this as a game where it's not so much about just, competing. It's really how do we play smart? How do we find these different intricate patterns? Can we, against a team that's bunkering, overload certain sides or look for these intricate patterns that Berhalter's trying to do?
And can we combine those two things? That's not what I want to see. I want to see the competitiveness in addition to sort of that possession style, because the teams that possess and are successful in it aren't just passive when they don't have the ball, aren't just passive in turnover moments, aren't just saying, oh, actually, we do just want to build, but when, there's a counterattacking opportunity right here. We just pressed in the right spot, won the ball. Let's freaking go. Like, those are the building blocks that I want to see. But the start was this. It was to be pragmatic. It was to go for set pieces. It was to win the battles we can win. And then Canada just went straight Canada. Old Canada.
Yeah.
The Canada that we thought might be fading away, and there were still signs that it was here, and Haiti was a big one in the Gold Cup. This was a huge opportunity for them. They're still leading Group A in the CONCACAF Nations League. They have 9 points. The U.S. is 6. They no longer have the edge in goal differential, which will be the tiebreaker. Win. I'm saying win, not if, because I fully expect the U.S. to handle Cuba in the Cayman Islands on Tuesday.
Just like Cuba.
Hey, man, knock on wood here. Not just like Cuba, but, And then it would be the U.S. going on through to the semis, which will go down next year, and they would likely play either Costa Rica or Honduras. Costa Rica, who's kind of labored through their group. Honduras, who handled business and pushed their way through. Who impressed you? Who are the players to remember? What are the things that carry on? Did anybody earn a starting position? Did anybody lock one down? I mean, John Brooks should be a starter, I think. Sebastian Lletget should at least have a good call to be a starter. Where's Jackson Ewell stand in this whole thing? I mean, obviously, he stands there probably until Tyler Adams can. Who impressed you? What matters player-wise from this game, Doyle?
Captaining Serginho Dest for all time is what matters the most out of this game, player-wise. I thought Jackson Ewell put in a battling performance as a number 6, a physical performance, which is not something that was his calling card at all in his first 2 years in MLS. But like Samurai Soccer, man, Matias Almeida kind of dragged that out of him, and he became very good at it this year for his club, and now he's doing some of that for his country, which is nice to see. I agree with you that Sebastian Lletget has continued to make statements. I would say for the first half of this game, he was the best player on the field.
Give me that Trivela assist, please.
Yeah, that was spectacular.
Come on, Giassi. I know you got 2 goals, but it was on your dome.
You saw the game change within the first minute when he had that opportunity to play Paul Arriola through. After winning the ball, there was a transition moment, and Sebastian Lletget took it. And that was something that had been missing time after time after time. And if you look throughout that first half, anytime there was a chance to get his head up and play forward, he was doing that. So I right now, if we had to win a World Cup qualifier, Sebastian Lletget's name is there in pen for me. But we're still 6 months away from another game that matters other than Cuba, and we're still 11 months away from actual World Cup qualifying. So many things can happen between now and then. I do think that the biggest statement, the biggest change came from Greg Berhalter, where it was the pragmatic approach that you're saying, where it was, as you've said, let the players play on instinct and sometimes get into situations where you win second balls. But to me, it looked like a lot of that winning the second ball came from the structure that Berhalter had put in place, because we weren't playing a 4-4-2 with only 2 central midfielders, but it was actually a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3 with Lletget dropping back to add a little bit more in central midfield to McKennie and Ewell. It was we were pressing with our wingers instead of our center forward and our other central midfield, which was changing where Canada was able to play. And like all this stuff that people had questions about, Berhalter started to answer some of it. And to me, other than Dest, to me, that was the most important single individual takeaway from this game.
A lot more to talk about, and that'll come at the end of that Cuba game, assuming that I'm right and the U.S. win it. Excuse me. 7:30 p.m. Eastern, FS1 Unimas Turiene Club and Country will be on afterwards on MLS channels, the three of us breaking down U.S., Cuba, and this international break, and whether or not the U.S. are on to the Nation League's semifinals. Some news here to run through, and we'll get to some mail. Brian Fernandez, as I said, he's out of Major League Soccer, 15 goals in 23 appearances. Here is the quote from the press release. Quote, Major League Soccer has terminated the contract for Brian Fernandez, and the player has been removed from the Timbers roster. Straight to the point there. Basically, that comes a couple weeks after Fernandez entered the MLS substance abuse program, which is why you heard Doyle say, hey, Brian, get better, man. Previous issues, we know those were known. He's been suspended for substance abuse in the past. And then there was the stuff throughout the sort of mid-fall into the playoff run about the stomach virus. Clearly got bad enough that they decided they just could not go forward. Maybe that means that the Timbers are more likely to re-sign Diego Valeri. Maybe that means they go out of the market, as I believe Merritt Paulson said. We shall see going forward. Some other news here. Vancouver, they hired a sporting director, Axel Schuster. He's been the senior director of professional football at Schalke for the last 3 years. He was at FC Mainz before that, and he worked with Jurgen Klopp. So, hey, I mean, it sounds good. What doesn't sound good is Christian Dyer reporting that Daniel Henry, Christian Jack too, will not return to the club. He will go to Asia and be sold. Thierry Henry had his introductory press conference. I don't really want to talk about that other than Kevin Gilmore, the CEO there, says that they ring a bell every time season tickets get sold, and that bell is getting worn out right now. Thierry Henry is here. He loves Montreal. He loves the diversity. He loves that they speak French. He loves that he has a job. People are calling MLS a managerial incubator. That was The Guardian. So the next question logically comes from Morgan on Twitter. Who's your favorite ex-MLS player to become a coach in MLS?
You should ask Paul that.
Yeah, we should have. Marcelo Gallardo might be that guy. Paul basically said, you're going to know this person. They are an internationally renowned coach. Muñeco is his nickname, the doll.
You got it.
Yeah? You doubted me on that on a previous show.
I did.
You did?
I was wrong.
Yeah, they're playing for championships, our River Plate, but maybe they'll be playing for MLS Cup next year. Who else is in this category? Who do you want to see come be a part of our managerial incubator here in Major League Soccer?
Well, I mean, Gallardo's number one on the list. People I'm willing to keep shopping in Argentina. Eduardo Coudet, whose Racing team won the Argentine Primera last year. He played 15 minutes maybe for Philadelphia 10 years ago. He's a fantastic youngish coach who, I mean, honestly, if Gallardo moves on from River Plate, I wouldn't be shocked if Coudet ended up being his successor. But if I was an MLS team, I would absolutely go after him.
Alessandro Nesta? Throw that in there. Landon Donovan would have been an interesting one. Maybe not an effective one because he's never done it before, but now he gets his chance in USL. If you're going for the laughs, and maybe not, maybe the success. Cuauhtemoc Blanco is a legend, and he's a politician now, so he knows how to manage
He's going to be president. We don't have time for MLS.
Oh, come on. Build that. Come to Chicago, Qua.
This man has his hands full right now.
Give me a little Robbie Keane, maybe?
I was thinking Freddie Ljungberg.
Oh.
He's on staff at Arsenal with the first team now. I know he was with their academy. I played with him in Chicago. Very intelligent mind, understands MLS. That's important. Just for fun, Didier Drogba.
That is just for fun.
Just for fun. But
put him on Thierry Henry's staff. Thierry said he's
been scouting in the USL.
He knows. Is he still the part owner of Phoenix?
I believe so. David Villa would have been an interesting one too, but now he's got his Queensborough FC team as well. Frank Lampard. That's a decent one. Come on back, Frank. Chelsea, nah.
Something
Another
tells
name
me.
I've thought of has
think
been Juan Pablo Angel.
Yeah.
I know he's been a scout.
He's an LAFC. Yeah. Tim Cahill. I don't know about that one, actually. I just going for entertainment value at this point. Jermaine Jones is your ultimate entertainment value pick, and I know he's been getting his coaching licenses as well.
Eddie Johnson?
Hey, he's already doing his part, man.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think he's been around. I don't know if he's been around U.S. soccer, but I thought I saw something around him going at least to the game.
He went to, he was at the camp. He's hanging out at the camp, I think, with DeAndre and the boys. Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of players that you could holler at. Of course,
Parkhurst, Beasley, some newly retired guys.
And, Parker said he wanted to be a positional coach, basically. So those are our list here. Let's go through some mail really quickly. Your Admiral out of Seattle had something to say about Zlatan. We asked for your perspective. He says, between the off-the-ball, play has stopped horse collar tackle on Nedum Onuaha and choking Sean Johnson and literally cracking the skull of Mohamed El Munir. I don't understand how everyone around the extra time desk still wants Zlatan as one of the faces of the league. I understand he's a great player. When he came to MLS, I was not a fan of either of the LA teams, but I wanted him to succeed in the same way I was so grateful to see Rooney succeed, at least initially. If it raises the profile of the league and the quality of play, I'm largely for it, but count me out on Zlatan. He thinks no one will remember MLS if he leaves? Cool. Let's test that theory. If his last action for MLS is yelling at his opposing fan and grabbing his because he's mad about getting bounced from the playoffs, I say good riddance. That's a Seattle fan right there for you.
Yeah.
Not much to go there more. But Chris,
do you want to hear more voices of the fans, Calen?
Not like that.
No, okay. I don't have any more like that. Chris Wellhausen says, considering the Sounders have now won their second MLS Cup in 10 years, who do you think will have more trophies 20 years from now, the Galaxy or the Sounders?
That just got...
Yeah, you got Galaxy brained. How about this?
like-
Next 10 years, which is the more successful club? LA Galaxy or Seattle Sounders?
Chicago Fire.
Whoa.
I'll take Seattle.
Somebody's been on Reddit today, huh, Doyle? Mike Moon, longtime listener, still waiting for Simon's scoreboard. Call me an extra time listener. That was interesting.
Oh, boy. Oh.
That's
Would it
tough.
be easy to do a supporter shield for the decade? Certainly, Ben Bear could generate that. Yeah. And he did. Seattle Sounders were the best team of this recently completed decade. They won 176 games. Regular season wins.
Okay, regular season wins.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would go for points per game and limit it to
Points per game, they were the top, but also of the
But
teams
like,
that
I would
played,
limit
of
it
the team
to
that played the whole
5
decade.
years. I would limit it to like you need at least a 5-year sample size to.
I'm
Okay.
surprised by that. I would have thought the Red Bulls would be higher with
The Red Bulls
supporter
are
shield.
just behind them, 166 games won.
Okay.
Because early on in the decade they were a little iffy. This year wasn't as good. Now, there's a 10 win gap there. That's 30 points, but it is only 0.03 in points per game. Who do you think has the most losses of the last decade?
It might still be Chivas USA.
It is
No,
in fact not Chivas
it's
USA.
it's Chicago, Colorado, maybe.
Colorado is the right answer with 147 losses over the last decade, and right behind them is DC United with 146. Who is the only team to hit triple digits in draws?
Chicago.
No.
They had that one year where they had
I know.
20 draws, man.
I know. Nope, not Montreal.
Huh.
Only one team hit triple-digit draws.
Portland.
No.
Houston.
FC Dallas with 100. Chicago Fire with 99.
Ah.
Right behind him. Behind him. Thanks, Mike Moon, for hitting us up. Jameson M., as a recent soccer convert, I've taken to watching the Premier League, Liga MX, Bundesliga, and, of course, Major League Soccer.
Wow, he's overdosing, man.
Oh, yes. I've been wanting to find an MLS team to support for some time now, but I feel guilty because the first club I stumbled upon was Tottenham Hotspur back before I watched Major League Soccer. Is it wrong to have two teams that I passionately support? And if not, which MLS team would you recommend for a newcomer?
All right,
What does that mean? Is it bad? I don't get the
You
question.
can. He's basically asking, does he have to give up Tottenham or can he go two teams? Which he can obviously do.
Yeah,
you can do whatever you
No,
want
you have to
do.
give it up, man. Give it up.
And you probably just should give
Only-
up Tottenham. Tottenham was the first team that I was into because of Dimitar Berbatov, and I hated Robbie Keane back in those days because I was like, Robbie Keane is solely the beneficiary of Dimitar Berbatov's brilliance.
Wait,
we should all celebrate
You switched
Burba.
from Tottenham to Arsenal.
Just my brother was an Arsenal fan. I really don't care.
That should say something about this man's character.
I really don't care. Did I love my brother? Exactly. That is what it says.
So the only
Right.
team that you really root for as a diehard is University of Kansas, or Kansas University, men's
University of
basketball.
Kansas,
University
men's
of Kansas,
basketball.
whatever.
Yeah,
KU.
yeah.
Would you ever have a second team in college basketball that you would root for as a
I
diehard?
barely have a first team. at this
Really?
point. My number one team in college basketball is paying the players.
Okay.
That's I'm team. I'm
I
team
mean, Kansas
compensation.
definitely already does.
We're ahead of the curve. We're far ahead of the normal curve. Who should we sick on Jameson? Who's the Tottenham of MLS?
The Tottenham.
Yeah, constantly falls short, doesn't quite get the title. Should he be a Red Bulls fan?
I mean, the Red Bulls have 3 titles this decade.
Okay. Shield. That's true. Tottenham doesn't get those.
Yep.
So who underdeliver? Should he be a Fire fan? Because now they're going to have maybe their rise, and they've been very disappointing
Sure.
despite resources.
Yeah.
Come back to us, Jameson. Tell us who you picked.
Now would be a good time to go for Chicago, I think.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a new team, I
Yeah.
Yeah, get in
Yeah,
now.
not bad. Cesar Hugo has this one for you. Matt, if you were given the task of previewing the 5 MLS teams in CCL for any of the Deportes shows in Spanish, could you hold your own? He says he's long suspected that your Spanish is good.
No, my Spanish is terrible.
You should be answering
I've
this
seen
in
you
Spanish.
working on it, though.
Yeah, no, I work on it. I have like a 175-day streak on Duolingo, and I can read okay. And if the person speaks very slowly, I could understand okay. But like if you asked me to speak in Spanish, like no hablo.
You got to go full immersion, man.
Yeah,
I do.
We should send you to Argentina to scout for a year.
I think
Live in a steakhouse
and learn a little bit.
he always talks about selling young players at the right time. Maybe it's time we sold our old player at the right time. Maybe it's time,
Okay.
At least
Hey,
for
a
the
couple
winner.
years-
How about a loan? A winner
couple years
loan
in Mexico.
I wouldn't be mad at that.
You could be the new Johnny Bornstein.
All right. I mean, he got really good at golf.
He
and
did.
Spanish.
He was great at riding a jet ski in the Gulf too.
Sounds awesome.
Sean Hargrove has this one. If you could bring any MLS 1.0 player into the current version of MLS, who would it be? And why is it immediately Marco Echeverri?
It is 1,000%
Oh my God,
Marco
it's Marco
Echeverri.
Echeverri.
And you put him on DC United, and like that would be like. I hope young listeners and viewers just
here we
go find some Marco Echeverri clips because he was amazing. He was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's the one. But send us who would you bring back? Who do you remember? Who do you love? Do you have one?
Honestly, early DeMarcus Beasley.
Nice.
Yeah.
Pre
Flying
ACL
up down the wing.
Pre ACL Clint Mathis. Like people like the most talented Clint in U.S. national team history is not Clint Dempsey. Clint Mathis was amazing before he did his knee.
How about pre-Fulham Bocanegra? Is that MLS 1.0 for you?
Yeah, it's 1.0, but like who's gonna pick a defender? Come on, Wiebe.
Because I'm trying to build a team for a decade. I'm getting Boca, man. All right, fine. Hit us up. And one last one from Soccer Movie Mom, who is a dedicated listener, and we love you. So did Brian Schmetzer make Bobby Warshaw famous, or did Bobby make Brian famous by causing him to emerge from his self-effacing Clark Kent facade? Ooh. And that's it. That's it from us. Big thanks to Paul McDonough for stopping by. Another show coming later this week.
Can one exist without the other?
That's true. That's true. Is Brian Schmetzer the coach of the Sounders without Bobby Warshaw as an MLS soccer? I'm just going to end it there. We're out of here. Thank you to Paul. Thanks to these guys. Thanks to Anders back in the control room producing this show. Thanks for all your mail. 401-206-0MLS, Extratime at MLSsoccer.com, at Extratime on Twitter. We'll get out of here now. We'll see you on Thursday with all the expansion draft results and more.
Thank you.